Welcome back to Wrestling Talk on this Friday morning. Hopefully, you are all doing well today because there are some great news to talk about. And of course, the very first piece of news I want to bring up is something that got announced, yes, a week ago. But we finally get a chance to talk about it right here on Wrestling Talk, and that is the fact that the Phenom, the legend, the dead man, the Undertaker, has been announced to be entering the WWE Hall of Fame this year during Wrestlemania season. And first and foremost, that lit up social media like you would not believe. Because Taker is, without a shadow of a doubt, the most respected man in professional wrestling today and possibly in professional wrestling history. There is no one out there that dares to say anything bad about Mark Calloway. And it's not like there's anything bad to say about him either way. That's just the rule that everybody goes through. He's a man who started in WWE back in 1990, 1991 during that Survivor Series pay-per-view debut. And since then, he has made history. Like every single superstar out there, he's had his ups and downs. He's been a multiple-time world champion. In fact, at one point in his career, he was the youngest WWE champion in WWE history. Until Lesnar came in and Randy Orton and then The Rock beforehand. Again, those records are meant to be broken. He had that infamous Taker versus Taker main event. I believe that was at SummerSlam. He pretty much was the focal point and the protagonist of WWE's greatest story ever told, which was his longtime rivalry, his longtime tag team partner, his storyline brother, the man he's had multiple WrestleMania and other pay-per-view classics with. I'm talking about the Big Red Machine, Kane, who is pretty much, in my mind, a shoo-in to induct The Undertaker into the Hall of Fame. In my mind, it should be Kane, Vince McMahon at number 2, and then number 3 should be Stone Cold Steve Austin, number 4, Shawn Michaels. Those are the 4 men that have been thrown around to induct The Undertaker into the Hall of Fame. Triple H is also comes to mind, but again, he'd be number 5 at some point to induct him. I really just want Kane to be the one to induct him, but all in all, since this announcement this past week, we all know how important The Undertaker is to professional wrestling, how important he is to WWE, how important he's been for the history, and how loyal he's been to the company over the past few years. So a lot of wrestling fans out there in the IWC started to throw around the idea that The Undertaker should be the only inductee into the Hall of Fame. And that, ladies and gentlemen, wrestling fans out there, far and wide, that is a genius idea. Because like I said, he's the most respected man in professional wrestling. There's a reason for it. And if he gets to headline and be the only member of his class into the WWE Hall of Fame, if he gets to be the only one to get that luxury, so be it. Because he deserves it. And he's done so much for WWE at this point, so much for the WWE universe, that wrestling fans would not scoff at it. As a matter of fact, if they were to add somebody else to this class at this point, about to end February, going into March, heading into WrestleMania season, we're so close to April, they haven't announced anybody else as a part of the class. If they were to announce someone else to join that class, I'm not going to mention names because I don't want to disrespect anyone out there. But if they were going to do that, wrestling fans would lose their minds. They would go on Twitter, they would go on social media, and they would start doing their hashtags and start to get rid of this, which would just put WWE in some terrible, bad light. Taker is synonymous with WWE, he's synonymous with WrestleMania, with the WrestleMania streak, with Hell in a Cell, with all the theatrics that WWE has brought since Taker's debut has been because of the Phenom. And Taker has put guys over countless times. And he's done that because he has been loyal to WWE. And his Deadman character, the most iconic of all time. Now his American Badass gimmick during the Attitude Era and the beginning of the Ruthless Aggression Era, I found it entertaining, and I found it like Taker needed to do that to evolve with the times and really get his footing back into what the WWE was at that point. But every time you just hear that gong go off in the arena, the lights go out, his theme, his music starts playing, that ominous, I think that's the word, ominous theme. You start to build up, you get those goosebumps. The fire starts to pour out of whatever equipment WWE has on the entrance. You got smoke all over the ramp, enveloping the entire camera angle that they're showing you on TV. I never got to witness that live, which is unfortunate. But again, I got that feeling straight from right home. And his slow walk to the entrance, the slowest, most methodical entrance in WWE history, and it had a point, it had a meaning. It wasn't just thrown out there just because. It was actually there to serve the storyline, the character, everything the Undertaker did. I'm not going to say it was perfect, because nothing in this world ever is, but it was as good as it gets. And I'd be remiss if I don't talk about when Taker's WrestleMania streak was broken, but it had to be broken. And WWE did great business by having Brock Lesnar end the streak, and then you have Brock Lesnar still on his current run, on the best run of his career, part-time run, but best run nonetheless. He's still making good business for WWE, and they owe that to The Undertaker. So with that said, I could go on and on about Mark Calloway. Every single greatest match he had. Those two matches he had against Shawn Michaels, classic, instant classics at WrestleMania. Many argue the best WrestleMania matches of all time. Then you have the end of an era match with Triple H inside Hell in a Cell with Shawn Michaels as special guest referee. His match in 2006 at No Way Out against Kurt Angle, which was pretty much very, how do I put it, very uncharacteristic for the Undertaker character at that point, at that time of his career, because Taker is a big man, and he wrestled like a big man for the most part. So when he faced off against Kurt Angle and he put on a wrestling clinic with him, it caught everybody by surprise, and it made a statement. He had his match against Batista in 2007, Edge in 2008 at WrestleMania, and then at SummerSlam, Hell in a Cell, sending him to hell, quote unquote. We can go on and on about what Taker's been doing. He put Brock Lesnar over. He put Jeff Hardy over in that ladder match on Monday Night Raw. He knows how to tell a story. And now, Taker, Undertaker, Mark Calloway, the Phenom, he's going into the WWE Hall of Fame. I'm hoping he's the only one in his class to do so this year, and I'm hoping this, and for the first time in my life, I'm actually looking forward to watching a Hall of Fame show, a WWE Hall of Fame production show, where you have Taker be the only member of his class. And like I said, you have all those 5 men. You have those 5 men I mentioned at the beginning of this segment, at the beginning of this show. You bring out The Rock. You bring out, even The Rock could induct Stone Cold Steve Austin into the Hall of Fame. You could bring out John Cena. You could bring out Batista. You could bring out so many superstars, so many wrestling figures out there over the years to come out and induct the Undertaker and talk and just give out stories about what Taker is all about and what he's meant to the wrestling business. And honestly, I couldn't be more thrilled. Because I kind of feel like Undertaker might be the biggest reason I'm a WWE fan to this day. Because back in 2005, yes, I'm Hispanic, I'm Latino, so I obviously supported Rey Mysterio and Eddie Guerrero, and they caught my eye. And I loved John Cena's Doctor of Thugonomics rapping gimmick. That caught my attention. But the minute that I sat on my bed as a kid, and that gong hit, the lights went out, and Taker made his way to the ring. 10-year-old me, I was glued to that screen. I was enthralled. And this is coming from a guy who hates horror at this point. I wouldn't say hate, but I don't prefer horror over a lot of things. And Taker bringing all those horror aesthetics to WWE, it caused an impact on me, and I kept watching because of The Undertaker. So with that said, Undertaker, Mark Calloway, congratulations into going to the WWE Hall of Fame this year. More than deserved. And like I said, if hopefully that entire Hall of Fame show and that video package that WWE just produced for him, fantastic. Hopefully it's devoted entirely to you, and I'm looking forward to The Undertaker being in the WWE Hall of Fame. Because like I said, it's Taker and WWE. They go hand in hand, and that's just that. So with that said, I'm not even going to pose a question. You as a wrestling fan, you know The Undertaker should be inducted into the Hall of Fame in his own class. You know you're going to watch that Hall of Fame ceremony. And you know that over the next, 35 days until we get to WrestleMania, we are going to all watch and go back through some of The Undertaker's classics, and maybe not so much, not so classics, just so that we can watch more of The Undertaker and the great send-off he had against AJ Styles 2 years ago at WrestleMania. So with that said, Taker, congratulations, well deserved. Thank you for all the memories. You deserve to go into the Hall of Fame. And if I could, I would turn the lights off right now and just pay tribute to The Undertaker. So with that said, we have to get into what transpired last Friday. Last Friday morning, the Elimination Chamber Premium Live event, which I'm hoping does not catch on because it's not as catchy as pay-per-view, something we've been saying for decades at this point. But again, WWE likes to use their own terminology, leave them be. But my biggest fear happened. Like I mentioned on last week's show, I firmly believed the almighty Bobby Lashley should have retained his WWE Championship. Hindsight is 2020. Now we know that Bobby Lashley is not even going to be able to compete at this year's WrestleMania. He's going to be out for the next 4 to 6 months. That's what's being reported for shoulder surgery. So that's unfortunate on his behalf. But it does give him the luxury of coming back during SummerSlam season. And like I mentioned on last week's show, give us that true one-on-one, clean as a whistle match between Brock Lesnar and Bobby Lashley, where the Almighty finally beats the Beast Incarnate one-on-one, clean. No interference, no help from MVP, nothing. No appearance by Roman Reigns, nothing. And if you do that, WWE, if you do that, you've got another household name and Bobby Lashley. And that's what you should be building towards. But again, now we have to head into WrestleMania, where the most hyped up match, or the most feared match by a lot of wrestling fans out there, not just me, not just myself, is that title versus title contest between Brock Lesnar, current WWE Champion, facing off against the Tribal Chief and current Universal Champion Roman Reigns, with Paul Heyman, the council, in the middle of it. And like I said, I've said this in the past, and I'll continue to say it. At this point, this is the best story that the WWE has told with Roman Reigns and Brock Lesnar. So on that basis alone, as a story guy myself, as an entertainment guy myself, I believe that this should headline WrestleMania. I just didn't think it should have been title versus title. Because then you devalue every single match under that card. Then you have to do what WWE is doing up until this point, which is just throw random stuff against the wall and hope it sticks. And come up with matches that have no build-up, that have no or little to no history over the past few months, over the past few years, and just throw him up against the wall, throw him up at the grandest stage of them all, WrestleMania, which is something you should not do because this is the Super Bowl. You should build up to it. I don't care if you telegraph the WrestleMania card years in advance. I don't care. I need storylines to get involved in these matches. And what they're doing right now, other than the main events, it's pretty lackluster. And like I said, this seems like a roadblock, like a pit stop to next year's WrestleMania, right here in Los Angeles, California. Doesn't mean I won't watch. Doesn't mean I'm not excited for the big title versus title match. I'm just saying WWE could have done a whole lot more. If you had that match be for the Universal Championship, and if you had, I don't know, Seth Rollins or even Riddle walk out of the Elimination Chamber as WWE Champion. You could have had Seth Rollins versus Big E. I'm telling you, like, I can't watch Big E on Friday Night SmackDown anymore. Going back to being a tag team competitor. Nothing against New Day, nothing against Kofi Kingston or King Xavier Woods. At this point in their careers, they should all be single superstars. They should all be, if not in the main event, they should all be at least close enough to the main event that they're not held down by the New Day anymore. So that really breaks my heart to see Big E, after all the work he's put in, back in that tag team division, along with Kofi Kingston, who suffered the exact same fate 2 years ago. So, that's just how WWE has decided to manage things, mismanage things in this case. Or you could have had Riddle win the WWE Championship and then have Randy Orton turn on Riddle and have that be for the WWE title at WrestleMania. I don't really want another Randy Orton title reign, and I don't want RK-Bro to disband or break up at this point in time. They've just been so entertaining. It just cracks me up every time I see them on TV. So, I'm glad that didn't happen. Part of me is glad that didn't happen because, like I said, RK-Bro, along with Chad Gable, like, come on. Entertaining as hell. More of that on WWE TV. But again, WrestleMania card, looking forward to it because it's WrestleMania. I'm going to be watching, I'm going to be paying attention. But we'll just have to see. We have Bianca Belair, hopefully getting her big comeback, her big redemption against Becky Lynch at WrestleMania Saturday. Hopefully she gets her win back. The ESC gets her win back from her SummerSlam, and Becky Lynch puts her over, which is going to be really hard because, like I said, WWE likes to protect these kinds of stars. They like to protect Brock Lesnar and Roman Reigns and Ronda Rousey and Becky Lynch. They don't just throw around these phrases that, oh, this superstar hasn't lost since this point, since this date. They don't just throw that around. They say that. They inform you, the wrestling fan, of that with a damn purpose. So this superstar is a big deal. So that when they do lose, whichever the stage is and against whoever it is, it's going to be a big deal no matter what. But overall, over the next few weeks, going into March, heading into April, we're going to be talking a lot more about this WrestleMania card. Hopefully it starts to shape up. Hopefully it starts to actually give us some interesting footnotes on the road to the biggest show of them all. But, I mean, other than the subpar to great show that subpar to good show that WWE gave us this past Friday night in Jeddah, Saudi Arabia. What are your thoughts heading into WrestleMania season? Do you agree with the current card as it stands? It seems we're getting the title versus title match. Becky Lynch versus Bianca Belair for the Raw Women's title. Ronda Rousey versus Charlotte Flair for the SmackDown Women's title. We're getting the Mysterios against Miz and the dashing Logan Paul. I like what WWE did there, and I'm just glad that they're actually portraying Logan Paul as the heel that he should have been last year instead of trying to force him down our throats like a babyface. I think they're building up to Edge versus Damian Priest. It's either him or against the phenomenal AJ Styles. I really hope it's AJ, just because it's quite a dream match for me. But again, if it's Damian Priest, that does a hell of a lot to put over the United States champion, which is something WWE should be cognizant of. And if you're asking me, the U.S. title and the Intercontinental Championship should be defended at WrestleMania, no matter what, especially if it's 2 nights. All right? So with that said, what do you think of that card so far, building up to WrestleMania 38 in Dallas, Texas? Leave your thoughts, comments, and predictions in the comment section below. And like I said, we're building up to WrestleMania, title versus title match. And it just seems like WWE is kind of toying with the idea, throwing it out there, pretty much dipping their toe in the pool of wrestling fans, pretty much witnessing the end of yet another brand split, which would be, in my personal opinion and my professional opinion as a wrestling pundit, it would be disastrous. Because yes, WWE have let go of hundreds of superstars over the past 2-3 years. Their roster is as how did I put it? Short-handed as it has been over the past few years, as it has been over the past few decades. Compared to what it was in 2018, 2019, when AEW first started, WWE is lacking in the amount of stars that they have currently contracted to the company. But that doesn't mean that the brand split doesn't work. It doesn't mean that the brand split should end. Because all in all, WWE's main problem to this day is that they don't know how to first create stars, create new stars, like actual new stars, and then protect them to the point that they don't fall down the card and they mean less. Something that's happened to Big E, something that happened to Kofi Kingston, something that happened to Kevin Owens, something that happened to many other superstars along the line, along with a guy who just recently had his contract come up and decided not to renew with WWE because he was not happy with his current position in the company, and that is the amazing, the great talent that was Cesaro. But that is WWE's biggest problem. And you don't fix that type of problem by changing the gimmick, by changing the wrapping around it. You don't end the brand split because you think that by having the entire roster on both shows is going to fix it. As a matter of fact, I think it's going to hurt it even more because you have all this talent that you're trying to showcase to the mainstream audience, to the wrestling audience. And you're going to cut the legs from under them, and you're going to cut their time, all because ratings have gone down, and you think that's a quick fix. And a lot of wrestling fans out there are going to be bringing up the point that back in the Attitude Era, they didn't have separate rosters, and they still created stars. They still made for some fantastic moments. Yeah, they did. They absolutely did. But guess what? That was the writing. That was the characters. That was the talent. That was the audience at the time really connecting with what the World Wrestling Federation at that time was putting on your screens. Everything came to be, and that worked. And then WWE attempted back in 2012 to first end that brand split. They created a Raw Super Show where you had 3 hours of the entire roster on Monday Night Raw, and they put on decent shows. And then you had Friday Night SmackDown, where it was pretty much a repeat of Raw. You had rematches from that week's Raw on SmackDown, and it was just unwatchable. Nobody wanted to watch the Blue brand at all, and nobody did. Nobody did. It offered great wrestling. I'm not going to deny that, because you had stars like Daniel Bryan and John Cena and Randy Orton and Christian and many, many more during that era, putting on some great matches on SmackDown that meant nothing because they were rematches and they were just there as book holders for the next week's Monday Night Raw, because WWE's creative team was unable to build up any superstars, any entertaining storylines for us to really tune into WWE's product at the time. And if you think that the WWE is going to do the exact same thing in 2022 after WrestleMania with the end of the brand split, you are severely mistaken. Because like I said, you don't change the gimmick, you don't change the wrapping on something that is broken. You fix it from within. You work on it tirelessly until you get results. And the brand split should be working. It should be working. They should be trying to give us different feels for each show, like they did in 2003, 04, and 05. Don't give us separate pay-per-views. That didn't work. They don't have the talent for that. Or actually, let me rephrase. They don't have the amount of talent for that yet. But all in all, if you want to create new stars, if you want to showcase new stars, new talent on this platform, you keep the brand split. You keep the separate titles. You keep the dual titles in this case, to put it that way, and you work with it and you try to fix that. So with that said, you already know my thoughts. Don't end the brand split. I'm hoping they don't. We'll see what happens down the line. What do you think? Do you think WWE would benefit from having the entire roster appear on both shows and unifying the tag team championships, the world championships, the women's championships, unifying them all and just work their way from there? Or do you think that they should really commit to having the brands be separate, having separate rosters, and see if they can actually give us some good content? Leave your thoughts, comments, and predictions on the comments section below. And a few days ago, an interview to a former WWE superstar led everyone to believe, because he pretty much stated during this interview that he was headed to AEW. All this after his controversial exit from WWE. We're talking about the charismatic enigma, Jeff Hardy. He pretty much stated that he is AEW bound. He will end up in AEW. His 90-day no-compete clause runs up at the end, or at the beginning of the first week of March, I believe. So we should expect him to appear on Dynamite or Rampage, maybe even Revolution. I'm not sure if the dates line up for Jeff Hardy to debut at Revolution. But all in all, it's pretty much a done deal. Jeff Hardy, the charismatic enigma, a WWE legend, a wrestling legend at this point, is going to end up at All Elite Wrestling. I'm not going to berate you with the fact that it's yet another star joining an already bloated roster with limited amount of TV time, limited amount of meaningful TV time for each and every single one of their superstars. I'm not going to do that. I've already done that in the past, and you already know, I'm going to continue to do that. I'm going to continue to do that and say that because, I mean, if you give your girlfriend a gift every single day for no good reason other than it's just a gift, she might feel good every time you do it. But at that point, your girlfriend understands that each gift means less and less and less and less. And you, as the boyfriend, keep running out of options to surprise her. Keep running out of options to make each and every gift meaningful. And it just waters down the entire concept. So, in my view, Jeff Hardy's going to debut for AEW. It's going to make a big splash. Social media's going to go crazy. He's going to go to a company that, to be honest, doesn't need him, where WWE did need him on SmackDown, facing off against Roman Reigns at Elimination Chamber instead of the, well, past his prime Goldberg. Or even at the Rumble. And he's just going to end up being another name on their roster. And we're going to get what we already got in 2017, which was the Hardy Boys teaming together, being tag team champions, again, for a different company this time. They've held all the tag team titles on the wrestling scene at this point. That's the Hardy Boys. That's what we're going to get. I think that's Jeff Hardy. Nothing. But, like I said, if he shows up in AEW, I'm going to be excited. It's going to be good TV. But it's going to end up meaning less anyway. So, yeah, those are my thoughts on Jeff Hardy. I wish I was more excited if he were to return to WWE, and I really wanted him to have this last final main event run. And he said it himself. He wants to have one last final run with WWE down the line, even after his AEW run is over. And WWE knew that they effed up when they fired him and for not taking a drug test and not going to rehab. They knew they effed up, and they tried to make up for it by having him inducted into the WWE Hall of Fame this year. And Jeff Hardy pretty much said, no, I'm not going to be inducted if you're not going to induct Matt Hardy along with me. And obviously WWE can't do that because Matt Hardy is currently contracted to the competition, to AEW, to the other product. So that happened. All in all, Jeff Hardy is going to make his debut. My question to you is, are you excited for it? How soon do you think it'll happen? And do you think this is going to be a great move for AEW and Jeff Hardy? Those are my questions as it pertains to Jeff Hardy in this instance. So with that said, leave your thoughts, comments, and predictions on the comment section below, because we are about to see the charismatic Enigma appear and be all elite. And finally, I'm going to bookend this week's show of Wrestling Talk with one of the hottest products out there, and that is Impact Wrestling, who put on a killer show last Saturday night at No Surrender. When Impact Wrestling first announced their Impact Plus specials, I didn't watch them. I mean, I thought of them as pretty much what they used to do with the one-night onlys pay-per-views that they had. They were one-offs, they didn't matter, and it's true, they didn't matter for the overall product on TV. They were just great nights of professional wrestling. You had some so-and-so dream matches at some point. But overall, if you watched it because you wanted to watch good wrestling. And there's nothing wrong with that, but like I said, I'm a fan of storylines, I'm a fan of entertainment, and if you don't give me a reason to invest into these characters and invest into these storylines, then I'm most likely not to watch that show. And that's what I did for so many years. I did not watch any of these Impact specials until, what was it? 2020, when the pandemic hit. I think the very first show I watched was Hard Justice 2020, because I thought that was the beginning of of Impact Wrestling implementing and making these shows mean something for the week-to-week show that they had. What was it, on Access TV back then? I think the main event for the Hard Justice pay-per-view was Eddie Edwards versus Eric Young for the Impact World Championship. I think Eric Young became Impact World Champion at that time. All in all, it was a good show, and I was happy with the results. And I've been watching these Impact specials ever since, because Impact Wrestling and Scott D'Amore have begun to make him an integral part of Impact Wrestling storylines. To the point that if you don't watch these Impact specials, you're going to be in a severe blank spot for the next week's Impact show. And nothing could be truer than this past weekend's No Surrender pay-per-view event, or Impact special, whatever you want to call it. Because the GOD got betrayed, and they are no longer a part of the Bullet Club. But the Good Brothers are. And I will be lying to you if I tell you that when I saw that GIF or a video clip of the Good Brothers throwing up the Too Sweet sign to Jay White and Chris Bay and joining back up with the Bullet Club, I'll be lying to you if I didn't pop for that. I'll be lying to you if I wasn't excited about that prospect again. And hopefully Impact Wrestling gets to build up their tag team division once more. Moose is on one hell of a run as Impact World Champion. He beat W. Morrissey at No Surrender, and now he's poised to face off against Heath at the Sacrifice event in March. The last big roadblock, the last big pit stop on our way to Rebellion in Poughkeepsie, New York in April. Now, if you ask me, Heath has no chance in hell of dethroning Moose as world champion. That doesn't mean that they can't give us a great title match. And with unfortunate circumstances leading to Josh Alexander no longer being a part of Impact Wrestling right now, I'm pretty much left in a blank spot as it pertains to the main event of Rebellion and who Moose is going to defend his championship against. But that's the fun of Impact Wrestling, right? They're unpredictable as hell. They're the most unpredictable wrestling product out there. AEW be damned. And I said it, yeah, I said it. And then you had you had the events transpire as I said, not as I said that they would transpire, but I told you guys that they were gonna be building up to Impact Wrestling versus Ring of Honor Wrestling. Not only at Rebellion, but also at WrestleMania weekend during April. And that's exactly what happened. Honor No More earned their contracts at No Surrender, and they did so by having a shocking betrayal, which turned out to not be that shocking because Eddie Edwards helped Honor No More earn their contracts and earn their stay at Impact Wrestling. That's great storytelling, and it makes sense because Eddie Edwards got his start in Ring of Honor Wrestling. If I'm not mistaken, Eddie Edwards is a former Ring of Honor World Champion. And it's a betrayal, and it's a turn that has, no pun intended, an impact. Because over the past few years, Eddie Edwards has been chosen and he's been named as the heart and soul of Impact Wrestling. So to have him turn on Impact Wrestling, the company that he's been with for the past 7, almost 8 years at this point, that's meaningful. That makes wrestling fans out there, Impact Wrestling fans out there, really get invested into the product. And now, with, again, Josh Alexander no longer in the company in Impact Wrestling, I have to think that whenever he returns, I'm talking about Sami Callihan, he's going to take that Impact Wrestling flag, throw it on his back, go up against his longtime rival, classic rival at this point, Eddie Edwards, and eventually Sami Callihan is going to take revenge against Moose and become Impact World Champion. I'm hoping that that's the story that they're leading up to, and hopefully, maybe the Samoan Submission Machine making a return to Impact Wrestling, one final run. He is a free agent, of course. He does have history with both Impact Wrestling and Ring of Honor, so we've got that to look forward to. But again, Impact Wrestling has just been building up to these great moments. They always give us a banger of a show. We can't expect anything less from Sacrifice. So Scott D'Amore has been doing quite a great job. And if it were up to me, it is up to me because this is Wrestling Talk. Scott D'Amore is Booker of the Year. He's the Booker of the past few years. And he's turned the company around. And if wrestling fans out there do not want to admit it, and if they're still hung up on AEW, that's on them. But what Impact Wrestling, along with Scott D'Amore, has been doing, you gotta check it out. Please put an effort and find Access TV every Thursday night. Tune into Impact Wrestling. Subscribe to Impact Plus. And just give them their due. Because like I said, Impact Wrestling is the hottest product out there, whether you want to admit it or not, and AEW be damned. What do you think? Do you agree with me? I'm sure a lot of you don't. And if you don't, be free and leave your thoughts and comments on the comment section below. So with that said, we've got a hell of a contract signing to look forward to on today's Friday edition of SmackDown. We've also got Rampage. We got Hook. That kid that Tony Khan has actually been building up the right way in AEW. We've got that to look forward to. Yet another great wrestling night of action. So with that said, enjoy your Friday. Enjoy the weekend. I've been Alexis Carrillo. See you next time.